Okay, so you can see we have our 3 units sewn together here, pressed as indicated by the pattern to the dark sides or pressed open as you like. An important note about pressing is that cotton, like many things, when it is warm, it's still flexible and it's still forming the bonds to decide where it's going to be. When it's cool, that's when it's locked in and decided its state. So when it's warm, you can still manipulate and change it. When it's cool, it's locked in. So you should never cut things while they're warm. You shouldn't change them. If they need time to sit at the ironing station or somewhere else and cool down in its state, sometimes we even set a ruler on things to help, lay it down and keep it in shape. That's a good thing to do. In order to ensure that our subcutting, this is commonly what is called here, we're going to take our big long strip and we're going to subcut or do more cuts to it. To ensure that it's straight, and I am straight, I do like to line it up with one of the lines on my mat. That's just for reference, because I always want to make sure that I have a 90-degree area that I'm cutting so I get straight strips, not strips on angles, very subtly, because as it subtly starts, it gets worse. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, as before, is we're going to cut off our selvage and get rid of that. So I'm going to demonstrate this with a regular standard ruler. You can use your long ruler, 6x24. You could use a square. You can use whatever you want. One of the important things I want you to see, and it's a little bit hard because my ruler is clear, but if you can see that, is some of my whole inch increments, those bigger dark lines. What I want to do is I'm going to cut this into a specific length as indicated by the pattern. So I'm going to line up that marking on my ruler with the edge of the fresh cut piece. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that it's straight. I'm not going to worry about these edges because they may have changed a little. My sewing may have warped them. I may have pressed a little bit hard, but this line, these in here are what you're going to see in your quilt. That's what's going to line up with other pieces. So you want to make sure that that is the indicator to ensure you're straight. So how am I going to do that? I have my increment marking of how wide I'm going to cut my strip right here. And I am lining up one of my lines with the seam to ensure that that is a 90-degree corner so that it's straight there. So I'm going to cut like this. And I tend to ensure that the fabric doesn't move, I put the ruler down and I do it again. And again, I'm placing it so that I can see that I have a straight line. I could just put this on here and let it sit anywhere I wanted without that reference, but I feel I get a better, straighter line by lining up that increment and making sure that I'm pretty straight there. And I'm going to keep doing that. Now, you can see that that's how we mark. So some people might say to themselves, that's a lot of work. Why don't you just move your ruler over to whatever this was times 2? 2 and 2 makes 4, whatever it is, right? Why do I do that? Because I made mistakes many times doing that. And we don't always have fabric to waste in a case like this. Sometimes there isn't that much extra. There might only be an extra inch or 2, and that it will not be enough to cut another unit if you make a small mistake. So even though I like to be efficient and quick about certain things, I don't always want to give myself an opportunity to waste and make a mistake. So I'm just going to move you back a little bit, and I'm going to demonstrate how quickly we can cut this with a Stripology ruler. So in this case, very similar to before, I am lining up one of these lines on the Stripology ruler. There's white ones and black ones, it doesn't matter which one. I am going to line those up with the seam in here to the best of my ability, and I've got a starting edge there. I know that this is straight. There's an indicator down here of how big I want to cut it. So I can cut in this case, as discussed before, I'm cutting at every square. Now I can only cut so many, but I cut at least twice as fast, even while talking, doing that versus a standard ruler. And they're still, because this holds it nice and flat, they are still perfectly sized. I don't have to worry about the markings on the mat because the mat's not important to me. I've got this edge right at the edge of my cut. When you push down on this edge, it'll actually feel the edge of that fabric, and you can kind of start there. And as long as I'm lined up and straight along that seam, and where the square is, and where the square is, and where the square is. Oops, and if you're going to move, just straighten her up before you do the next cut. And there we go. Stripology is fast. So I have all of those cut for what I need. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to label them with a specific labeler, a piece of paper that says strip set 1 and how many. And then I'm going to set them aside. You're going to see that in the next video. All right. Can't wait to see you again.